Hello and welcome to a very belated episode of the Stitch Witch podcast. This is not going to be a traditional video in which I update you on my projects, but I did want to say that I finished my tulip loop vest today. It's what I'm wearing now. It's my first cabled garment and I am so supremely proud of myself for getting it done. And yeah, I just wanted to mention that I wanted to do a little bit of like a 2025 knitting intentions / knitting goals, just because last year I wrote them down in my notebook and then I did not like reference it throughout the year. So I think it'd be nice to have a YouTube video where I specifically document exactly what it is that I want to do for the new year. This might be your jam, this might not be your jam. I'm sorry for the noise. I live outside a car dealership. It's not the best place to live. But anyway, yeah, this might not be your thing, so if it's not, feel free to join me again for something else. But I personally am someone who really is invigorated by new starts, new cycles, you know, time passing. And so in the honor of celebrating my first year of knitting having come to a close and being relatively successful, looking into my second year of knitting, I feel like I would love to have a set of more succinct goals. So this is going to be a combination of a New Year's resolution / New Year's knitting intentions and my Make 9 garments. There are a ton of things that I want to knit. You could look at literally any of my other videos, but I think the idea of a Make 9 is like 9 items that are like your dream items, maybe bigger, more complicated items, or yeah, for me, it's like more of a reminder to hold myself accountable to the things that I think are too challenging. So I've put quite aspirational pieces on here. So let's jump into it. Okay, my first 2025 knitting goal is to prioritize unique construction and different fits. Now for me, this is a particularly useful one because I'm relatively still new to knitting and I'm even newer to knitting garments. I spent a really long time knitting accessories and I found that this year I continue to really enjoy knitting accessories. I'm knitting on one now. I just finished one earlier this week, so there are a lot of like little things that I like to do, and they are definitely skill extenders because I'll do things like cables or interesting stitch patterns or, you know, God knows what else, but I'm not as aware of like what I like. I think there are people who say, you know, I like a circular yoke, or I like a raglan cut, or I like a drop shoulder. I like having a split hem, and I like having it longer in the back and shorter in the front. I'm just not someone who is aware yet. Obviously, I like commercial garments to look a certain way, and I'm particular about that, but in terms of the breadth that I've achieved with knitting so far, I'm just not there yet. So that is one thing that I really want to do. And in terms of unique construction, I'll get to that at the end. I don't necessarily mean I want a stockinette sweater that is built uniquely. That is fine, and I would like to do that, and I would like to continue to try new things. What I really mean is like genuinely like visually unique. So I'll get to that at the end. Number 2, use more dark and neutral yarns. I have a thing where in my commercial wardrobe, everything I buy, everything I own is like black, white, gray, red, pink, blue, or dark brown. And those are great colors and I like those colors. But all of the yarn that I buy is a very different color scheme. Really, really colorful. I love brights. Still the same kinds of colors, but yeah, I'm not as attracted to just like black yarn. But this year my goal is really to use more dark and neutral yarns. I cannot keep knitting colorful sweater after colorful sweater after colorful sweater. Not that I can't, but like I don't want to. Sorry, I have crazy allergies today, which is why I like didn't even bother with makeup. I just knew it was gonna come right off. But if I do look and sound congested, I'm pushing through something like weird and seasonal. Okay, so dark and neutral yarns is definitely goal number 2. I don't really have a quantifiable way, which is why these are more like intentions and not like SMART goals, but I think generally if I can use up more of my like dark and neutral stash, if I can dig through patterns and like look at the things that I've made over the course of the year and think, yeah, this was like relatively different to the stuff I was making prior, then I will be happy, right? My third bucket list / knitting intention is to create a marathon project and finish it. And what that means is something that takes 6 months or longer. I think that would be sick. And when I mean 6 months, I don't mean like I worked on it for 3 weeks and then I let it sit for like 5.5 months and then I picked it up and then I finished it and that was like technically 6 months. What I mean is I want something that like actually takes a lot of continuous knitting, and you'll actually see what that item is on my Make 9. But yeah, I think that would be cool because I think so often I look at projects and I think like, well, there's no way I'm gonna knit that. And why would there be no way I knit that? I knit so often. I knit so often and so consistently and so much that there really shouldn't be anything that I write off because there's no way I could make it. There are just so many things that I do and I have made. So it just feels a little strange to pigeonhole myself. And I think it'd be very ambitious and quite, yeah, I would be quite proud to like finish something very, very long term, what I'm calling a tedious knit or a marathon knit, because you could really say like, yeah, this one took me like a long time and it's a magnum opus, right? My fourth goal is to upload throughout 2025 on YouTube. I wrote 2024, which tells you I wasn't really aware of what was going on. But yeah, I have had a little bit of a like emotional setback with this YouTube channel, which is that because I pivoted from a previous channel, YouTube like completely doesn't know where to sort me in the algorithm. Obviously, my previous audience wasn't interested in what I was doing, which is like totally fine and valid. But also I've gotten demonetized because now there's a requirement for YouTube Shorts and / or like a new number of hours, because I think I just was not pulling in the same views that I used to. So the impetus to start over from like scratch kind of feels a little bit like stingy and sad, and I just always wonder if I started a new YouTube channel, would it just be better? But now that I have like my domain and username and Instagram is everything like set to Stitch Witch Podcast, I'm like, I don't want to give this up. I don't want to start over again. So the only thing to do is to charge forward and make 300 knitting videos, so that way it can offset my years and years of makeup content. So even if it's just for myself, even if it's just for documentation, and even for me, sometimes I like referencing my own videos to see like I mentioned, I didn't have one for my goals for my, you know, my year of knitting. And it would just be nice to have like a physical archive of like what I've done throughout my late 20s, you know? Number 5 is to use up around 10,000 yards of stash. That is part of my like stash down challenge for 2025. I don't think that'll be particularly hard. That'll be what, like 10 sweaters, or even fewer if they're cabled sweaters. And I'm already like several sweaters into the year, so it just doesn't feel like it'd be too difficult. But yeah, at least 10,000 yards of stash. I would like to knit 10 projects from my Ravelry pattern stash prior to 2025. So what I'm calling stash is anything prior to the start of this year, so anything I've acquired before the start of 2025, and library stash is exactly what that sounds like, any patterns that I have in my library from prior to 2025. And when I say 10 patterns, I don't necessarily mean like they have to be exactly 10 different patterns. It could be, or like, yeah, they could be 10 different patterns. They could be like 5 and 5, like 5 new ones, 5 of the same pattern. I don't really care, but I have another subcategory of knitting the same pattern, which is that I want to knit one pattern at least 2 times. I think this is because I don't like the idea of only knitting something once, and as a person, I'm someone who really actually enjoys the idea of like learning like an item and then doing it in multiple colors. I think that's like actually a quite fun idea, and you can do quite a lot to customize a garment by either drastically changing the fiber choice, changing the color, maybe adding in like a duplicate stitch kind of design, maybe adding color work, maybe doing contrast cuffs, you know, maybe whatever, changing the gauge. So I think it'd be fun to play around and try some new stuff in that way, because I always say that I have plans to do that, and then the only times I do it is like for little accessories, but I think it'd be cool to do for bigger pieces. I'm not making that the rule, but one of my goals is definitely to start drawing from my pattern library, not only to start new things, but also to learn from previous mistakes. Number 8 is to incorporate a chart or knit pattern into a design. So what that means is like sometimes I'll see these beautiful Pinterest charts online, like of swans or Miffy or bows or ribbons or roses or whatever, and I really want to include them into a sweater or a balaclava or something, and I don't know how to do it. I've like never done it before, but I see all these people on Instagram, usually crocheters, but they're much bolder and like much more fun than I am. And you'll see them making like a really beautiful swatch and then building around it. So just yesterday I watched a video where a girl made a really cool grid, and the grid was some kind of character, and then she designed a tank top around that grid, and it was like patchwork, super cool, super chic, very artistic, and I think like I could definitely figure that out. And at the very least, I could probably figure out like, I don't know, if I wanted to do like a color work yoke sweater, like just add your own chart. I'm sure it wouldn't be impossible to do, but I would love that. Sneeze break. Okay, number 9 is quantifiable, but I don't know how I'll check this at the end of the year, but I want to prioritize 100% natural fibers in over 90% of my projects. This is inspired by one particular YouTuber that I watch. She really only uses 100% natural fibers, and that includes like not really much dye. She likes really, really natural like woolly wool. She doesn't really use anything synthetic in her socks, so she does 100% knit socks, and she uses other natural methods to keep them like durable and hard wearing. She doesn't do like elastics in her neckband. She doesn't do plastic in her buttons. Like, I just think, I'm not saying that I want to go like on the deep end crunchy granola, like, you know, to that extent, because obviously, one, it's not sustainable for me to do that with my stash, considering I have non-natural yarns in my stash. Like I have superwash yarns, I have plastic buttons, so the most sustainable thing is to use what you have, right? But I think the idea is nice. Like I'm already someone who likes a natural woolly wool, so it shouldn't be too difficult. And I think there is something just really luxurious about like a 100% wool sweater with like non-plastic buttons. Like I like that idea. I don't know why I didn't consider it earlier. And it's the same reason why I don't really love knitting with like acrylic yarn, because to me it's like I'm in a position, fortunate enough, where I can buy something that's natural. And to me, the quality, the positive qualities of natural wool outweigh the benefits of acrylic. Like for me, like I don't have an allergy, I'm not vegan, like I don't need, you know, the easy care, like I'm not spitting up on my clothing, usually, or like whatever, it's not itchy, blah, blah, blah. So for me, that like extra bit of time and love that's spent hand knitting a garment, why not go the extra mile and make it like nice and 100% wool? And I feel the same way about like everything now. Like why don't I just make the buttons like less plastic? Why don't I try not mixing in like nylons or polyamides or whatever? Like let's see how far we can take this, basically is what I'm saying. Yeah, we'll have to do a little bit of math at the end of the year to see exactly like what my number ends up being. But 100% natural fibers in over 90% of my projects. Number 10 is probably my biggest one, which is that I want to gift knit like way, way, way more this year. My first like few months of knitting, I gift knit a lot because I was like really good at making the weekend hat, basically, which was basically a whole sleeve of knitting. It's like 1 by 1 rib all the way down and then you decrease at the top. My husband finished his very, very first weekend hat and we are so proud of him. I will show you that in our actual podcast update, but yeah, I gift knit a ton that first year. Like I gift knit all of my Christmas gifts because also I was unemployed. So we did like mittens, fingerless mitts, hats, scarves, headbands. What else did I do? I did like some home stuff. So I did like coasters, I did a little cat bed, I did cushions, blankets, like you name it, I gift knitted it. And then this year I was like, nope, I'm gonna be a selfish knitter. I don't really mind the idea of being a selfish knitter. I think that's like totally valid and I'm definitely one of those. So, you know, take what you will from that. But I just didn't think it was an issue. So I fully have come back around. I recently did a yarn inventory, started the new year. I think it was like January 1st or like January 3rd, and I went down and I had my husband help me set up an Excel sheet and we like did an entire inventory of my yarn stash. Once you look at it, you're like, yeah, there's no way I can keep all this in my closet. So the solution to that is inevitably that I'm going to have to give it to other people. There's no way I can keep all of this in my home. So yeah, I'm gonna have to gift knit to other people. I already started, so that's good. I made someone a like birthday / Christmas gift, and like that's off the needles and that's done. I'm casting on another cowl / mitten set for my husband, and then from there, like we'll see, I have like a friend who is getting yoga socks, and it's just like a long list. But I think it will be more intentional this year as like a really, I don't know, like a labor of love. I can talk a little bit more about this in the podcast as well, but I think it'll be like a quick, as I'd imagine here, giving that friend his cowl. He was like so excited to get it, and I made one for his wife too. And I didn't get to see his wife's reaction, but like I know that she has since started like using her gift. And I think as a knitter, I tend to feel like my work is not valuable, or like I don't really, like I appreciate this, but I don't know if other people will appreciate it because it's kind of like, this is kind of a niche hobby, right? Like if someone made me, I don't know, if someone was really into like Legos and then they built me a Lego thing of my house, I don't know that I would like that. Okay, that might be because I'm like on the spectrum and I'm not like a nice person all the time. And so I would probably not have like the right cultural response to a gift like that. But to me, like I don't necessarily assume other people take my works of kindness as like valuable to them. Like yes, it was very sentimental, and yes, it was a great deal of love and care and expression of that intent, but like the final outcome might not be worth what you put into it. Like I might have preferred a $50 gift card over your like hand designed like Lego house replica, which like maybe I'm a shitty person for saying that, but it's like you like Lego, I don't like Lego. Like I don't necessarily want your Lego thing just because you like Lego, but it doesn't seem like that's universally the case. So seeing that some people really do like hand knits, I'm like, okay, maybe I can do this and it actually will be like worth my time. Because growing up, when I gave handmade products to like my family, namely my mom, she was just like, I don't want this. Like, why would you think that I wanted this? Like, this is not something that I'm gonna wear ever, right? And I don't know if this is just like Asian parents being like extremely picky, or if like my Asian parent was just extremely picky, but like I have friends who had a similar experience, right? So I have a friend who also knits, and she made her family member stuff, and they were like, oh, thanks. And then, like, you know, obviously didn't want any of it because people are picky. People are picky. And, like, if you hand make something, yes, it's a lot of effort. Yeah, we're not the Midwest over here, you know? Like, I see I see all the memes about, like, Midwestern people being, like, so kind and, like, so patient, and everyone is, like, always like, oh my god, you're so thoughtful, like, I'm so thoughtful, I'm so sentimental. Like, people in New York, like, we do not care. If it's ugly, I'm not gonna wear it, you know? Like, if it doesn't match my aesthetic, I'm not gonna wear it. Like, I don't want you to do that, just give me money, you know? So I'm not sure, like, what combination of, like, cultural factors made it that such that I don't really value handmade objects, specifically ones that I didn't, like, specifically ask for, and therefore I also undervalue my own handmade objects. But the goal for this year is to hand make more for other people, do it well, execute it in a way that is, like, incredibly thoughtful. So we're not talking about, like, leftover yarn or, like, oh, this was a random hat that I threw together and you can have it, right? Like, intentionally making something for someone. I think that would be nice. So I don't have an explicit number goal for this. Like, I don't know how much frequently entails, but I'm gonna say, like, maybe 20 pieces. That would be nice if I could knit, like, 12 to 20 pieces in a year. And ideally they're not, like, janky little projects. I like the idea of knitting quite nice things for people, like nice hats. Like, the weekend hat is a really nice one because it's extra thick. The cowl that I made was the halibut cowl. I'll put a picture of it up here. It was really cute. But something that, like, is not obviously, like, a leftover thing, right? Like, I want it to be special. I want it to be tailored to the person and their personality and their lifestyle, blah, blah, blah. So yeah, that's my next one. Number 11 is to knit edgier slash darker slash, like, more, like, creatively aesthetic pieces. And I'll throw 12 into, which is focus on knits being solely a creative act, not necessarily just for closet practicality. So 11 and 12 kind of go together and also somewhat clash. One is that I crave edgier pieces in my wardrobe to begin with. Like, I wear, not on YouTube, but, like, I have a lot of, like, chain necklaces, spikes, like, you know, big chunky silver jewelry. And, like, my makeup is usually, like, a little bit more intense, right? So my personal style, I would say, has some, like, harder elements to it. And knits are soft, and I like that clash. And I also like the artsy-fartsy look. Like, I enjoy pieces that clearly look a little bit special. Things that maybe you bought in a store, maybe it was super commercial, or maybe, like, you didn't, and, like, you commissioned this, like, crazy artist to make it for you. And it was just, like, some starving college girl, like, in her dorm room making you something, right? So that's kind of, like, the aesthetic that I like. And oftentimes when we knit, I think we think about something being, like, timeless, or like, being perfect forever and ever after every single season, or, like, this silhouette is, like, you know, blah blah blah. And I think there is a little fallacy to that. Like, everything that we perceive as a timeless classic often is still tied to somewhat of an era if it's trendy. Now, if you are completely outside of the trend cycle and you, like, don't focus on trending silhouettes whatsoever, and you're, like, always doing your own thing, I think that's fine. But a lot of the big brand name designers that we can think of, like the top 5 household name designers, they are influenced by trends. They are incredibly chic commercial pieces that look very, like, basic, but in a really, like, beautiful, trending way. It feels classic, but it's not, because there are components to certain things, like the cut of sleeves, or the circumference of a body, or even, like, the weft and weave of a fabric composition that are based on our times. It's just kind of like the ineffable quality of culture. So I think the idea of chasing a knit garment wardrobe that is full of forever pieces is kind of, like, not a thing if you are going to knit all basics. This is, like, my headcanon, but even if you look at, like, capsule wardrobes from, like, 2012, they do not look trendy anymore. Because even though people say, like, a basic white blouse will look forever good in your closet forever, the basic white blouse from 2012 is not the basic white blouse that we wear today, unless you are completely out of the trend cycle, right? But if you're talking about trendy pieces like trench coats, the trench coats of a decade ago and the trench coats of today, even though it's a classic piece, parts of trending style will inevitably, you know, characterize some of that. And it's just kind of like a moot point, I think. And especially when it comes to handmade garments, handmade objects, objects that require, like, so much love and patience and, like, tears. I cried so many times knitting this stupid vest. It just, I feel like, is chasing something that is, like, going to go out of style eventually. So, like, why not do the thing that is fun? And for me, I like fun. I like whimsy. And I'm lucky enough to live in a society and work in an office and have the kind of lifestyle where I can wear stuff that's like more fun and wacky. So like, why don't I? I don't know. I was holding myself back. I was making a lot of like basic pieces and like a lot of timeless pieces, and like for what? Because they're not going to be timeless forever. Stuff pills. Stuff gets ruined by moths. Like I think I was playing a longevity game, like way farther beyond like what I needed to. I'm playing a longevity game where like 10 years down the line, can I still wear this top? Like who cares? 10 years is like way too long. Not that I'm saying we should make like fast fashion garments, but like I think I can look at a garment and be like, can I wear this in like 5 years? And if the answer is yes, I should make it. Like I shouldn't be worrying like, oh, when I'm 40 years old, am I still gonna want to wear this shirt? I don't know. We'll figure it out. Like when I'm 40 years old, I will still be knitting, right? I will still be knitting at 40. I can make pieces that I like at 40, but for now, while I'm in my 20s, I want to dress how I want to dress, and I don't feel like I need to like make myself more basic because I feel like it's more practical. I feel like this is less of a common goal. I think more people are like, make more basics, but for me, I'm like, make less basics, make fewer basics. It's not necessary to make basics all the time. It's not that deep. It's like really not that deep. This is a hobby. I want my art to be fun, and I want this to look like art, which is why also the goal before about knitting like edgier pieces, like that's what I want in my wardrobe, and that's always what I'm shopping for when I'm like online and I'm browsing and I'm watching outfit of the day videos and I'm, you know, consuming my fashion content. I'm always putting it through the lens of like, what would I actually wear? What parts of this is you know, what parts of this is part of my actual personal aesthetic, and a lot of it isn't. And obviously when I'm at home filming, like this is not my aesthetic, but you know, it is. I think there stands to be room for me to have fun and to have maybe a little bit of risk taking for my, you know, the things that I want to try. So one of the projects that I'm working on to work on that goal is this scorpion cowl. And I think this is fun. This is like an example of like something that looks like art, something that's a little bit edgier, and something that who knows if I can wear it in 10 years, but like maybe when I'm 38 years old, I think this would be like really sick to wear. I think I would look very fucking cool. But yeah, those are all of my goals. Let's now take a sneeze break and then we will do the Make 9. Okay, time for the Make 9. I printed this out at work, so it's ugly, but don't worry, I'm going to actually have pictures up here, so I'm going to scoot over for us. One of the first things that I did after inventorying all my yarn was take a look at the yarn quantities I had and then the projects that I wanted to make during this year. So all of these things like may or may not have corresponding yarn, but I am excited to hopefully make a majority of these during the year. One is the Heart Chain Cardigan. I actually have the yarn that I want to use for that right here. It is the Cascade Eco Plus. I originally wanted to do it in a cream colored yarn, but I realized I don't actually have a bulky weight cream colored yarn. So either I'm buying Eco Plus, which I don't want to do, or I'm going to make a blue one. If I like it, I'll make a cream one as well. But I should have enough yardage to make it because I'll need around 1,300 yards. And this is a relatively popular designer on Instagram. And I believe there's like a Korean version of Ravelry where you'll see like a lot of people knitting this sweater. But on the American site, there are like 5 projects. So it will be new for me. Well, the Tulip Loop Vest also had like 5 projects when I made it. So, you know, and this was my first cable piece. And I did not like the instructions. So we'll see how it goes. But yeah, that's the first one. Number 2 is the Grayling cardigan or the No Frills cardigan. Now this is going to be my marathon piece. As you can see, these are both like ankle length / duster length cardigans. Neither of them actually closes. They're really just kind of open pieces. And one is cabled and one is not. Now the Grayling cardigan, as you can see, has these like big, nice, robust cables. I think after doing this, I was just so in love with the cabling process that I really wanted a big cable piece. And specifically with the Grayling cardigan, I like that the cables are all the same. So it is busy, but it's kind of consistent, and I'm hoping that having all the cables turn at the same time will include less counting than something like this, where you have like different types of cables, right? However, the Grayling cardigan uses a whopping 3,100 yards, and I don't have, understandably, basically 2 sweaters quantities, 3 sweaters quantities of yarn in one single color. So I don't know what the plan is. It's also like a heavier weight. I think it's an Aran weight yarn. And I looked online, and I wanted to get the Eco Plus in the charcoal color, or there's like a charcoaly brown color that's really like quite juicy and delicious. However, it would be $200. It was like $176 for me to get 3,100 yards of that. Maybe on the list. That would be like an extreme commitment, because as much as I've definitely spent $200 on yarn, like come on, let's be real, I definitely have spent $200 on yarn before. I feel like allotting that much money to one project feels different than allotting it to like 2 or 3 projects. I don't know why it feels different, because ultimately the yardage is the same, so it should feel the same. And I know I would love this product because I actually have a duster length, you know, it's almost like a brioche stitch or a half fisherman's rib kind of stitch cardigan that I got from some fast fashion place like years ago, and I love it. I actually launder it all the time, and it doesn't really like shed or shrink or anything, and it doesn't smell bad, and it's not like super uncomfortable, but it does look a little crusty. Like, in the office, will anyone actually know? No, right? Like, no one in the office will actually be able to tell that this is like an actual wool sweater. But I think there are subtle cues, right? Like, the more you wear a polyester garment or an acrylic garment, over time it starts to pill. People are not as inclined to take care of it as much. You know, it drapes differently. So I would love a fancy version of that, right? Like, I would love an actual big girl version of a duster cardigan, and it would just feel nicer. It would be like more office apropos, right? Realistically, the no frills cardigan would be something that I might cast on soon, because I have the yardage for it. It is in my stash. It was free yarn that I got gifted from my grandmother, so that would be nice, like just as a, I don't want to say like commemorative piece. I mean, she's in her 90s. She's gonna boot eventually, but yeah, like it would be nice to have a nice big piece that is, you know, using that like one yarn, kind of all 10 balls of it or whatever, like however many yards it would take to finish the no frills cardigan. And I do have like the needles, and so like realistically that might be the one that I cast on, but I really like the idea of a big cable length duster. I think that's like so chic and so beautiful and so cute. Okay, next one on this list is the Levitate wrap. I've been talking about the Levitate wrap for way too long already. I have yarn for it. I haven't decided which one I want to use. It's not really important to the story, but I want to make one of those this year. Sweater number 29 has also been on my list. Actually, the sweater number 15 was on my list earlier, and then I think she quote-unquote like updated the pattern, and now the most recent iteration of this all-over cable is the sweater number 29. Again, love the idea that all the cables are the same. All the cables kind of seem like they are hit on the same number, so like every 15 rows or whatever, like let's say there's a cable. I like the idea of not having to keep track of several different kinds of cables, because that is hard. And I have a perfect cobalt blue that I would really love to do for this. I have a cobalt blue cardigan from Cezanne that I love, and I think it looks really great on me, and I always get compliments when I wear it. Probably because people can tell, right? Like, it's a good quality piece, it fits well, it's got, you know, some really thoughtful trimmings, and it's a nice composition. So those little pieces, I think, you know, I always get compliments on that one. I don't get compliments on like my Shein sweater, right? But yeah, I would love to have a button-up, a pullover version of the same kind of combination, like all over cables, cobalt blue, something that's really flattering for my skin and my complexion, and in a pullover, so it's really easy to wear, and yeah, I can just get like double the use out of that, and I have the yarn already, so that's great. Next one is the drift jacket. Now this is a 1,100 yards project, which is surprising because it just looks ginormous. Like, it has this huge fold over collar, or you can wear it as like a huge mock neck as well, or a cable neck, a turtleneck. And it has these really beautiful, abstract, super modern, almost like brutalist cables, or like abstracted cables. Loved this design when it came out, and I have the book from Rose Knitwear. I love her stuff. Alice Hoffman, I believe is her name. She is incredible. Like, I did her hat just this week. I think I spent like 48 hours on making the hat. Love the hat. I'm immediately going to cast on the balaclava because I'm like obsessed with her stitch designs. I love her vision. I love how she really blends kind of the historical, yeah, like cultural, what is it called, like intangible cultural heritage or whatever the UNESCO thing is, like intangible cultural artifact. Yeah, like so much of knitting feels so tied to places and of people and ethnic groups, and like the cable is so classic, and she has found a way to really modernize it into this really chic jacket. It's like a cropped shirt jacket, big sleeves, big buttons, like big collar. It feels very runway. I'm so excited to make this. I don't know what color I would make it in, but I know it's going to be beautiful because I've seen so many projects already. Her book is like well worth the money. I think I paid $20 for this book because I pre-ordered it, and it has so many patterns and so many stitch patterns and so much information, and every single pattern in there is a freaking banger. So definitely going to do the drift jacket this year. I just need to figure out exactly what yarn would be a good like compatibility wise, because I think it is a 8mm needle. Okay, next one, again, you've heard of over and over again. This is the Dagmar jacket. This was the sweater that I wanted to knit on my birthday, and I never got the yarn for this. I have dreams of making this in like a soft, milky pink. Very, very soft, like the color of strawberry milk. Really soft, buttery, baby pink. And I just don't have the yarn for it, but I would love to make that this year. Ideally, I wouldn't wait until the end of the year to make it, but, you know, who knows, you know, when the chips would fall. Now that I have tackled my first cable garment and I have like a bajillion other cable garments on this list, maybe I won't be so scared of it, but who knows. I have, on the other hand, 2 colorwork sweaters. One is the Fortuna's Wheel pullover, which is, I mean, it is like stunning, and everyone can see that it's stunning. It's beautiful. It's stunning. It's gorgeous. I mean, she's the moment. Everyone has knit this in such cool colorways. I think most people have done the traditional, which is the black and white. I love the idea of a black and white. I also am toying of the idea of like a white and brown, or like other colors. I don't know, but I would love to have the set. I mean, the set would be absolutely badass. I don't think I could. I mean, why am I saying I don't think I could? I mean, maybe I could. It would definitely be my 6-month marathon project if I wanted to do it that way. But I think if I were to make the top and the bottom set, it would be like the set of the year. It would be my pièce de résistance, right? But it is just gorgeous. It's a gorgeous piece. The only thing I have trepidation about is I believe this is flat and seamed. Which, like, in our Lord's year of 2025, like, really? Really? Maybe this will be like the one that I actually do flat and seam. But I knit one object like that in my entire career of like 1.5 years. And I didn't enjoy the process. Like, I don't like, well, one, I did one bottom up and I didn't like that. I did another one bottom up and I didn't even finish it because it was hard to tell with the boobs and everything. And then the third one I did bottom up and I seamed it, and that was even worse than bottom up in the round. So I'm not a huge fan, and maybe I'm wrong and this one is top down and in pieces, but either way, it looks sick. So that I can say for sure. I can say if I get like the top and bottom to match, that'd be even cooler. Like, I think I would be literally unstoppable if I did that. But yeah, it's such a beautiful design. I hope the designer gets her flowers. I don't think she does like a ton of stuff. As far as I'm aware, I went onto her Ravelry page and I believe she just has the Fortuna's top, bottom, and then there's a pillowcase. And maybe I'll start with the pillowcase because I'm like a little wimp. But I might start with the pillowcase just to get the feel for the colorwork design. Not that I am scared of colorwork. I don't know. I don't know what I'm scared of. This is just a lot of knitting. You know, this is like the fear of seeing something with so much yardage and being like, oh my god, can I make it? Can I make it? I don't know. And of course, I've never done trousers, but yeah, if I had to make 10, the pants would be on this list. And the other colorwork piece is the Obsidian. This is also an 1100 yard project, but I have all the yarn that I would want for this. I'm going to do it in a black and white, or black and cream, I should say. And I like the Obsidian because it fits kind of that darker, edgier aesthetic. I like the name of it, obviously. I think that's cool. And I have a pagan sabbat that I would like to knit this for, so, or a sabbat. So I am thinking of making this my Samhain sweater of this year. I started a Samhain sweater last year and it was kind of kitschy and I didn't finish it in time, and I don't think I'm going to finish it. So unfortunately, I might have to knit that again, like starting over, because the color work didn't end up being perfect. So I'm not pleased with that. And you know, you live and you learn and it's fine. But I think the Obsidian would be such a sick Samhain sweater. I'm obsessed with it. And then the last make 9 in terms of my garments is a clematis sweater. And this is going to be tricky because I don't know how this looks on people with big boobs. Yeah, I haven't seen how it looks cut through like bigger girlies, larger busts, I should say. Because I think the problem with something being really oversized is that you can definitely look sloppy. Like, I think this vest definitely looks sloppy on me, which is not ideal. But when it's tight, I don't like the way that it looks either. So the clematis is on here strictly because the picture is beautiful, and I have a Pinterest version of a similar sweater. I don't know if it's exactly the same, but it has contrast buttons, and I love that so much. So I think a piece of me is just really desperate to try to get something that looks similar to the clematis sweater. Whether or not I will actually make it, TBD, because I might find that, yeah, there's no way it's flattering, like, you're not going to do it, blah, blah, blah. I might start with like the clematis vest, you know, and then we'll see how it goes from there. But yes, that is currently my Make 9 garments for the year. I was thinking of doing a Make 9 for accessories and other knits because there are a lot of little things. I love knitting accessories. It's something that I realized I really like doing. I'm not a big hat knitter, but I will knit hats, I will knit cowls, I will knit shawls and scarves and mittens and gloves and, you know, like maybe socks and leg warmers and all that kind of stuff. So I thought it might be nice to separate them because there was no way I was going to fit the accessories into this list as well. So TBD on whether that video is coming as well. And I have a huge update, like a huge podcast update, because there was like a lot of knitting in the last month that I guess I didn't update anyone on any of my knitting. But yeah, that is it. So thank you so much for watching. Let me know what is on your knitting list this year. This is an adventurous list, and obviously this isn't even like my entire knitting wish list. This is just like what is currently the most poignant stuff for the first like month of the year. Who knows, you know, only so much of the year is going to be cold, and obviously these are like very, very cold weather garment friendly objects. But with that being said, thank you so much for hanging out. I love you guys, and I will see you on the next one. Bye!